Welcome to the Competitive 40K podcast, brought to you by Vanguard Tactics. 40K Codex analysis, list building, strategy development, game theory, mentoring. Our mission? To help you become a better player and to raise the level of the game both on and off the tabletop. Here's your host, Stephen Box.
Hey and welcome, this is episode number 14, and today I'm joined by Jack Downing once again. How you doing, Jack?
I'm all good, thanks for having me back again.
Mate, you're a regular, you're a staple now, you can't go anywhere. So today we're going to be covering, like we did last week with the new Death Watch, we're going to be covering the Space Wolves today. We're going to be looking at who the Space Wolves are, why you should play the Space Wolves, and then some of the possible things that you might need to look out for if you're playing against Space Wolves, and hopefully just give you guys a really good well-rounded insight into what the Wolves can offer on the tabletop. So let's not get around this too much, Jack. Let's just go straight into the meat and bones. Straight in.
Let's crack on. So first and foremost, who are the Space Wolves? What are they about?
So the Space Wolves are your kind of, I think originally they were sort of known as the Emperor's Executioners. And that's kind of like I suppose the lore behind them is that the Emperor would say, right, I need this chapter to kept in line, please go and sort them out, Mr. Russ. So Mr. Russ would then obviously go off, and there was some sort of controversy between him and, obviously Magnus. Was he actually in the wrong? Who knows? But anyway, there was some sort of brotherly kerfuffle between them. So they're kind of like a very anti-space marine army, I think. Very combat driven, and obviously they have their side to them, which is obviously part of their chapter, which is where they essentially go a little bit werewolf on a bad day. So that's in a nutshell. I mean, my lore knowledge, as you can probably gather, is pretty up there.
Well, I've learned something there, so thank you for that,
mate. Well, you and me, we are the lore experts of the channel, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. Vast knowledge there.
Mark and Joe don't know anything compared to us. But okay. Anyway, so Jack, obviously, new Space Wolves Codex has just come out. What books are you going to need in order to run the Space Wolves effectively?
So you'll need 3 books for this one. You'll need the overarching Space Marine Codex, the Space Wolf supplement to go with it, and then the newly released Imperial Armour Compendium that also includes units that can be used in your Space Wolves army. So you need those 3 books to really leverage the full variety of units that are available at your disposal.
Yeah, and that Imperial Armour, that's obviously the one for Forge World units. So if you're not taking any Forge World units, then obviously you don't need it. But I think that's like an option that you should definitely look into anyway. Nice. So Jack, go on and talk about a little bit more about why maybe somebody might look to play the Space Wolves.
So at their core, they're a very combat orientated army. That's where they want to be, and they've got some really interesting characters, and which this new Codex supplement really enforces that kind of play style. So it's great. So that's represented in their chapter tactic, which gives them +1 to hit on the first round of combat, as well as allowing the whole army to perform heroic interventions, which is an incredibly strong ability, especially in the 9th edition game.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, those two together, I think you can be a successor of the Space Wolves. You could be the Space Puppies, whatever you want to choose to be, but I still think +1 to hit and heroic intervention with the vast amount of units you've got, combining that with your super doctrine, which is Savage Echoes. So when you get to turn 3, when you're an assault doctrine, then every time you roll a 6 to hit, it becomes an additional hit. So also known as exploding 6s, which again is really powerful. So you've got the +1 to hit, heroic intervention, exploding 6s. It's basically saying combat, combat, combat. So this type of armies that we want to be building are probably combat more than.
Yeah. It's an important thing when you're picking up a book, is to lean into these abilities. That's the whole reason you probably chose the faction in the first place. You like the aesthetic and the unique units for Space Wolves, which are all combat orientated. So make sure you leverage these abilities when you're building your lists up.
Yeah, and that in that again, like when we talk about what's competitive, we're talking about, you know, what is enjoyable, obviously first and foremost, but then also what is effective and also what is efficient. So again, we want to be, in order to maximize the effectiveness and the efficiency of our units, these are the things that we want to be bringing in play. So maximizing that heroic intervention on the table. Okay, so what else is, you know, rather unique about the Space Wolves, Jack?
So that they've got their own set of data sheets, and they've got quite a variety of them, which we'll discuss a little bit further on in this podcast about the details of them. But as part of that, allows you to mix units up, which is quite a unique ability. It's a little bit similar to the Death Watch, but a lot toned down. You can add Wolfguard battle leaders into your units, so you can take a sergeant and you can also add a terminator into most of the units, for example, which is good. So you can all of a sudden have two say power fists and a unit of blood claws is an example that I like to look into.
Yeah, or you could have that, for example, with the Long Fangs, which is the equivalent of the Devastators. You could put a Terminator in there with a Storm Shield, just so he can tank the hits, with that Storm Shield getting the +1 to save, in cover and all that kind of stuff. So again, you can maximise the, I suppose, the durability of the unit, or increase its damage output depending on which way you want to go. And also what they do is something that helps you get around, again, one of the Space Wolf specific rules. So Space Wolves, we've gone over their chapter tactic and the super doctrine, which is that Savage Echoes, and you only get the Savage Echoes, the exploding sixes, if you are a pure Space Wolf army. But some of the units have an ability called Headstrong, and Headstrong basically means they can only charge the closest enemy model, which isn't too bad. You can normally work around that. But if you have one of these pack leaders, like you mentioned, you know, you can ignore that. So again, that's another reason why you should take a pack leader. And then also some of the other Space Wolf units have something called Berserk Charge or Berserker Charge, and you get +1 attack on the charge as well. So again, very, very nice. And the other thing that some Space Wolf units get is called Swift Hunters, and this means you can advance in charge, and also you get an additional +1 to any pile-in or consolidations. And Jack, who is it that mainly gets this Swift Hunters ability?
So it's the Thunderwolf Cav.
Yeah.
They are looking back with vengeance, aren't they now? I think the advance in charge is one of the main things that's making them look so good, as well as a general stat increase and their points staying at a reasonable point. But yeah, an advance in charge on such a fast unit is incredible.
Yeah, so this also applies to any characters that are also on a Thunderwolf, and then also this also applies to some of their other units like the Cyber Wolves and also the Fenrisian Wolves as well. So yeah, cool. You've got incredible mobility with advance in charge. And yeah, very, very strong ability. So now we're starting to see these things come into play. We got heroic intervention, we got +1s to hit, we got +1 attack on the charge with some other units. In the Headstrong and Berserk Charge are typically going to be or the units like the Blood Claws and the Sky Claws tend to have that sort of Berserker Charge as well. So you've kind of got the two different ways, and both of those units are still core. So the Space Wolf Codex brought about 6 new Warlord Traits, and obviously it brought out Space Wolf units as well, you know, characters, all that stuff. It brought out 15 new relics, 16 stratagems, the Tempestus discipline, which has got 6 psychic powers in it, and also 4 new secondaries. Now, we're going to cover some of this in a lot more detail over on the Academy, and we're going to be covering things like, you know, what secondaries you should take for what types of armies, you know, the army, you know, actually in action, what it looks like on the table, some top character combinations, what units you should include, how to deploy, how to beat the Space Wolves, some deep dives, and then also, you know, we give people bespoke feedback on their army list, and you can trial the Academy at the moment for $2.99, and all the links to that are in the blog post. And if you head over to the blog post, there will be the show notes along with an army list that I'm going to put together for the Space Wolves, and that is www.Vanguard Tactics tabletop.com/blog/S2EP14, and you can go and check out this list where I think we're probably going to cover the Thunderwolf Cavalry in a bit more detail there. They'll certainly be having an appearance. But, Jack, there was something I wanted to ask you about, and that is something called Sagas. So, what is, and these are combined with Warlord Traits, so what is a Saga?
So how the Sagas work is you select a Warlord Trait for your Warlord, and there's also stratagems to take additional Warlord Traits if you wanted to. So the Warlord Trait is broken down into effectively two parts. There's the Warlord Trait itself, which buffs the character, and then the Saga is unlocked once that character performs certain actions on the field. So it could be making a charge, or it's killing a number of models or characters, etc. And then that unlocks an aura ability to go with that Warlord Trait.
Yeah, and you still maintain your Warlord Trait, it just kind of unlocks another special aspect, which I think is really cool. I think the Sagas, if you get them right, I think some of them are incredibly powerful. We're not going to go through all of them today, but we're going to cover our sort of top picks. But when used correctly, they're going to really be a huge force multiplier, because anytime you can increase auras, that's going to be brilliant. And it does only affect core units, the auras, and they're typically all within 6 inches. Now, some of the deeds that you have to achieve are or actions, as Jack said, are much harder to achieve than others. And what you don't want to be doing is putting yourself at risk by just trying to unlock your deed and then inevitably losing your warlord. So it's kind of like a risk reward. So
it's a nice unique element to the Space Wolves. They had it in their last codex, but I think they've reworked it to make it easier to get some of these deeds off and increase the potential power of some of the abilities, which is great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll cover our top Warlord traits and deeds later on. So, Jack, what is it that the Space Wolves have access to?
So, firstly, they don't get everything from the Space Marine Codex, but the units they don't have access to, they basically have a like for like equivalent for. So in essence, you don't really lose anything at all from being a Space Wolf. You just gain additional units. So in terms of the unique units available to them, they've got a wide range of characters. Couple that stick out are Bjorn the Fell-Handed, which is in the Dreadnought. He's very, very good. He's got the -1 damage, 5 up feel no pain, great in combat. Ragnar Blackmane got some great new rules to go with his new model, but so he's still really strong. And they got a couple of characters that go around on Thunderwolves as well. So there's a wide selection of unique characters to choose from, which is great to see. So they're following on from that, they have Blood Claws, which is a Space Wolf Scout equivalent. Yeah, but they're in power armor.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're a sort of a power armored, and they've actually had a bit of a buff, haven't they? I think. And you can take these guys in massive units. You can take 15, I think, with 2-pack leaders in addition.
Yeah, like Blood Claws are one of my favourite units from the Space Wolves, and that goes back to when I was a younger man back in the day when Space Wolves were my first army, and I used to have a load of Blood Claws. But I think they can be very good. With the Astartes Chainsaw getting -1 AP, they get +2 attacks on the charge. You can get those pack leaders in there. I really like that as a unit. So they're nice. Grey Hunters, which is effectively a tactical marine. They can't take heavy weapons, I don't believe. They can just take additional special weapons, but more or less a like for like.
Yep.
And then you've got your Wolf Guard, which is effectively your Vanguard vets. So you can give them jump packs. Again, you can take them in a big pack as well, which is interesting. And Wolf Guards can also be in Terminator armor. The Space Wolf Terminators are quite unique in the fact that they can take a variety of different weapons within the same squad, unlike their Space Marine counterparts. So you could take combi plasmas and storm shields, or you could take storm shields, storm bolters, or you can go for all the melee weapons. There's lots of variety and different builds you can take for the Terminators, which is, for me, one of their key units in their book.
Yep.
The Hounds of Moraki. That's the new Reaver squad.
That's it, yeah. And these are kind of like your anti-psychers, so you can target psychers, ignoring the lookout, sir. I think you can also ignore mortal wounds, and you can only be selected if you're the closest. And also, they've got a little aura of 18 inches where you're -1 to cast. Now that is only on enemy units or enemy psychers, which is good. You know, you could probably combine that with a collector's assassin if you really felt like you needed some help on the psychic front. But I mean, this is an elite option, and they're not. The problem I think with this unit is that they've only got a combat knife, which is, you know, basically 1 additional attack, no real minus AP or anything. So it does make it a little bit more, I think, challenging to put this unit on the table. The one thing they do have is that Reaver ability, so you can unlock a stratagem so you can turn off an enemy's obsec. So there might be some play there, but I don't think it's going to be your go-to, because like you said, your Wolf Guard in Terminator armor, like having that ability to just mix units and mix weapons means you can either run them super cheap, or you can run them super powerful, or you could go real durable units with them. So they've got some really nice options there. And then also you've got your Wolf Guard. Like you said, you can take big units up to 10 in that one with the Wolf Guard, with the jump packs. It's the Sky Claws that you can take massive units with, of 15 nice. Or more. I think that was my fault on the notes there, but it's the Sky Claws that you can go even bigger, but still a 10-man unit is great. And then obviously you've got the Wolfen, haven't you now?
Yeah, so they were a staple of the Space Wolves army in 8th edition, but they've had a significant change between the editions and the Codex, which has made them less powerful from where they used to be sitting previously.
Yeah, they've lost quite a lot, haven't they? I think they've lost their... Well, they didn't get an increase in wound like everybody else did, so they stayed on 2 wounds apiece. Their armor save is still at a 4+, but obviously they've lost their invulnerable save, which is, they've lost their 3+ invulnerable save, and now has gone to a 4+, with a +1 to their armor, which means they're only on a 3+ save, which isn't particularly great. If they would have gone up to a 3+ armor with the Storm Shield, I think that should have been probably what they should have happened, because they've also lost their Feel No Pain as well, haven't they?
Yeah, it's been pretty brutal for them, but they were so prevalent in 8th edition. They're such a strong unit, so they're probably paying for their past sins in this edition.
Yeah, and they'd lost the more important thing, they don't have that core keyword.
That's a big problem.
So no real way to get them, you know, like re-roll hits and things like that, so much as you would be able to with other units. So and you can't perform action. So they really have been, and their point cost is still pretty high for the Wolfen. So they're not the standout unit like they were. You've then got the Wolfen Dreadnought, which is cool, and probably even cooler, you've got Murderfang, who is a character, and he is a Dreadnought. He's an absolute beast in combat, and he is under 10 wounds, so obviously he can be hidden. So you've got 2 character Dreadnoughts, you've got Murderfang and obviously Bjorn, both under 10 wounds that can't be targeted, and they're absolute powerhouses. And then you've obviously got the Cyber Wolf, Fenrisian Wolves, which we won't talk about too much, but you do have the Thunderwolf Cavalry. So this is a unit of up to 6 models. They've got toughness 5, 4 wounds, 3+ save, 2+ with the Storm Shield, and then obviously 4+ invulnerable. And the great thing about this unit is that you can go cheap and cheerful with the Assault Chainswords, or you can go heavy with the Thunder Hammers or Power Fists. And because of the innate ability of the +1 to hit, you really don't need to worry about any sort of minuses to hit, because it's going to be counteracted. So you're going to go into combat with Power Fists and Thunder Hammers, hitting back on 3s, and then providing that you've got some sort of chaplain, or also known as a Wolf Priest, for reroll misses, then actually you can kind of get around any sort of negatives whatsoever and really lean into this real powerhouse unit, because they're moving 10, advancing and charging, and T5, 4 wounds, 4+ invulnerable save are going to be super hard to shift. And what other units have they got? A couple of others, isn't there?
Yeah, so we've got the Sky Claws, which we mentioned earlier, which is the Assault Marine equivalent, which is a Blood Claw with a jump pack. They've got their Long Fangs, which is a Devastator Squad equivalent. And then they've got 2 unique flyers as well. One's a gunship, which is almost the Storm Raven equivalent.
Yep.
And then they've got a more specific transport as well. But they've all got a lot of guns on them, to be fair, from memory.
Yeah.
But again, flyers are in a bit of a sticky spot at the moment. They're not cheap because of the amount of guns they have on them. So I'm not sure how many of those you'll see on the battlefield.
Yeah, the Longfangs are interesting because they don't have any unique ability, which is interesting, like they used to. Because back in the day, they could split fire when obviously nobody else could. So they had loads of cool stuff about them. But now they've got nothing. The only thing they have is that you can take 5 heavy weapons in a unit rather than 4. And actually, you can put a Terminator in there with a Cyclone missile launcher, and you can still take that Armored Cherub, so one of them can fire again. So, again, it's one of those things that it's potentially useful, and again it can be like you could have the Cyclone missile launcher firing twice, which could be quite good with that Cherub, and you can give it obviously additional ballistic skill and things. So there's certainly some nice little combinations with the Longfangs, but they could be a good fire base, but you might want to put more of your points in the combat aspects like we sort of spoke about. So it depends on which way you want to kind of go to. And as you said earlier, they don't get access to assault squads, Devastators, Apothecary, which is a big one we can talk about, Sternguard veterans, Vanguard veterans in Tactical Marines they don't get. But really there's, apart from the Apothecary, everything else is pretty much covered, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So what is the sort of play style of a Space Wolves army?
So I'll kind of describe it as an aggressive combat that has great board presence, that's backed up with a lot of fast-paced units, which can make great use of that heroic intervention ability across the army to countercharge people that come anywhere near objectives, really. So, yeah, it's an aggressive board control army. I'd kind of sum it up, but.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And it does have the ability to be super fast paced with lots of Thunderwolf Cavalry jump packs, or it could be a little bit more durable with the Terminators, couldn't it? So you could go in, you could go Terminator Dreadnought based, a bit slower but harder, more resilient, or you could go heavy on the sort of maneuverability. I think the only issue going heavy into the Thunderwolf Cavalry is that you open yourself up to be move blocked. And now as terrain gets heavier and heavier and heavier across the tables, they might not be as effective on the tabletop as potentially they are on paper. So that's something to think about as well. And this is maybe where those Skyclaws or Wolfguard with jump packs could come in and be a really good option. But yeah, completely agree with you there. And being able to kind of put these big, large units, string them around an objective. So if you want to get into the combat, or so if you want to get the objective off the Space Wolves, you physically have to make a charge. And if you do make a charge, there could be other units that also heroically intervene, and you can only obviously then put so many attacks on one unit, and the other unit will then potentially pick you up. And there's lots of ways as well in which a Space Wolf player can make you fight last as well. I think there's 3 to 4, maybe I think there's even 5 ways you can make people fight last with Space Wolves, 5 different ways. So we're going to cover some of those. So yeah, very hard to kind of, I think, take the second or the missions off, which means this army is going to score very well on the primary. It should easily be holding 2, holding 3 reliably every turn. It's going to be great at certain secondaries, and also it's going to be able to move around the table if needed as well. So yeah, Jack, what is anything, we just made some notes about, this was something that I had to look up, because if you're not familiar with Space Wolves and you're up against somebody who is a Space Wolf player and they're, I've got a Wolf Lord, I've got a Wolfguard Battle Leader, I've got a Wolf Priest, who is who? Jack, talk us through it.
Okay, yeah, so a Wolf Lord is a captain, a Space Marine captain, so he gives you the reroll 1s to hit. And when you're getting +1 to hit on the charge, that stacks very nicely. Then you've got your Wolfguard Battle Leader, who is your lieutenant, so it gives you the reroll 1s to wound. And then the Wolf Priest is your chaplain equivalent, who gives you the access to Litanies. Obviously, all for core units only, as per the Space Marine Codex.
Yeah, and when you take a chaplain, he gains the Wolf Priest keyword.
Okay.
So if you were to take a chaplain from the book, he gains that keyword, because there is a stratagem in the Space Wolf book, which means a Wolf Priest can do something called healing bombs, and basically restore D3 wounds to a model, like the just regular apothecary can, because that's the only way to really get that. But obviously you can't take the apothecary to give you the 6+ feel no pain, and you can't take selfless healer where you can do automatic 3 wounds back, and then also start to bring models back as well. So as far as I'm aware, they don't have that ability. Could be wrong, but obviously I can't see a way how they would be able to do that if they can't take an apothecary.
I'm not going to cry about it.
No, couldn't you imagine Thunderwolf Cavalry coming back from the dead?
No, it's... But they've got ability to get feel no pains in different places. From, I think there's a Warlord Trait when the Saga's unlocked, and maybe even a Psychic Power, I think, or a Relic that can do it as well. So it's not all lost from the apothecary, but you're probably not going to get that efficiency from bringing back models. But you're still a Space Marine, so you should be fine.
And it's pretty much, if you're not taking a Storm Shield, then you're probably not a Space Wolf. So
do you even Space Wolf, bro?
That's it. That should be, I think, the title of this podcast is "Do You Even Space Wolf, Bro?" Yeah. Okay. So Relics, Jack. Typically, most people are taking, 2 to 3 relics.
Yeah.
We've picked out 4. Go over it. What's the first one?
Right.
What's your favourite?
So the first 2 are old but gold. The Armour Rust is back. It was gone very shortly, but it has now returned in the supplement. So it's almost identical to what it was. It gives the bearer a 2+ armor save, a 4+ inland save, and it picks a unit to fight last that's in engagement range of it, which, coupled with heroic intervening, there's a strat to heroic intervention 6 inches as well. That's a very powerful ability. You'll see that in most Space Wolf lists.
Yeah. And just on that fight last, it actually says after all eligible Space Wolf units have fought. So it is like a pure fight last.
Yeah, the proper job.
Proper job. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
On the tin, yeah. The next one's a Wolfenstone, so again a very popular choice from before. So this time it's giving you your reroll charges and an aura, which is great for a combat reliant army. And it gets Savage. Is that pick a unit to pick a unit for Savage Echoes? Does it?
Yeah, once per game. Yeah.
Okay, once per game. Yeah, so you can get exploding 5s on your Savage Echoes instead of 6s.
Yeah, but it says in the book, and I don't know if this is a mistake, because Savage Echoes is unmodified rolls of 6, whereas Savage Echoes explicitly says 5+. So obviously, if you've got a +1 to hit, you'd be getting your Savage Echoes on a 4+.
Decent.
Very decent, yeah. Like real nice, yeah. So that's and obviously, if you're -1 to hit, then it's back on 5s. But if you can get +2 to hit, it's only a net of +1. So then, it'd be back on 4s. Yeah, it'd be brutal. So I think
nice.
That Wolfenstone is a must. Now, it could be a mistake, but I would have thought if they wanted it to be just 5s and 6s, it would have said unmodified rolls of 5s and 6s, not 5+s. Because they must have, now by Games Workshop standard, they're so used to this new terminology of the unmodified. I feel like this is a intention to, again, combine this with their chapter tactic, which makes this incredibly strong, along with the fact that it's cool, it's once per game, and it's only on a unit. So
I think with it being once per game on one unit, I think that's fine, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you there. So my 2, well, I don't know about this, the 4th one, I've put it in there, but I like this 3rd one. It's called Moraki's Teeth Bolts, and it's a bolt shot. And basically, if you hit the unit, you reroll 1s to wound against that unit, which means, because when we start to go over some of the choices in terms of characters, I feel like the battle leader or the lieutenant isn't probably going to make the cut. Because I think there's so many other, HQ options that you want to take. So having just this ability means that you can put this on a bolt gun, a storm bolter, on your librarian or whatever you're taking, and you just shoot the unit, and now whatever targets that unit, you're re-rolling 1s to wound against. Great.
Yeah, that's a great relic. As you say, it's a competitive choice to HQ slot. So if you can take a relic to replace the lieutenant, perfect.
Yeah. Now the next one is I've put this in there. It's not incredible, but I do like it because I think this is going to stack well with one of the sagas. So you basically are. It's only on the bearer. You're -1 to hit and also -1 to wound. Which I'm going to come over or go on to later why that could be useful with a very particular saga, which is again linked to those warlord traits. So anyway, talking about warlord traits, again, we've picked out a few here. Give us one that you really like, Jack.
So the first one's the hunter, which is a +1 advance and charge and fallback and charge for the bearer.
Nice.
To complete the saga, you have to make a successful charge, which is nice and easy. And then the deed it gives off is a fallback and charge aura. So it's a great ability on the aura, and it's very easy to unlock. So that's very nice.
Yeah, for me, this is your top one. I think you have to take because of the ease the ease in doing it, and also unlocking fallback in charge with an army that can heroically intervene, advance in charge. There's not many more powerful combinations that you can get, but you put fallback in charge in it, and all of a sudden the Space Wolves are really going to come to life. So I think this is probably one of the biggest and most impactful auras, again, because it really works around that sort of counter charge, board control play style of the Space Wolves, probably more so than others. Which I really like. So the next one, I'm going to talk about this one, it's called Resolve of the Bear, and this gives you a 5+ feel no pain save for the bearer, and you cannot reroll wounds or damage rolls against the bearer, which is, again, why I put that relic in. So now you could have this really tanky model with the relic. He's -1 to hit, -1 to wound, you can't reroll wounds against him, and you can't reroll damage rolls against him. Now, if he takes a wound, he then unlocks, or one or more wounds, he then unlocks the Saga, which is a 6+ feel no pain aura, which again is amazing. So I'm thinking what you could do if you're a sneaky little Space Wolf player is go, I just left this one outside of 3 inches, but you've got so many stacks on there in a certain place. You're just baiting out your opponent to maybe shoot that 1 unit of eliminators at him, or shoot that 1 unit that can get line of sight to him, but probably won't kill him because you've got all the buffs and stuff. Or on a librarian and you perils and you take a wound.
There we go.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's nice. I think that's really nice. So yeah, I love that one. Again, it's easy to do, and but then also it's quite easy to deny. Your opponent could just never target this thing. Yeah. And I think if you know about this as if you're playing against the Space Wolves and they go, I've got this resolve of the bear, you're like, right, I'm not shooting that guy.
No, you shoot to kill. If you know you haven't got a redundancy to get rid of him in one go, you don't even bother, because you do not want to activate that 6 feel no pain aura.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think potentially on a librarian could be a good way forward with that, and just not hope for a perils. And then you've got 2 other warlord traits that we quite liked, because obviously the nature of this list. What's the first one?
It's Rights of War, which provides objective secured.
Yeah. So now this kind of stacks really well with that board control element, being able to heroically intervene, having Thunderwolf Cavalry that are objective secured, because they've got that core keyword is brilliant, isn't it? Friendly Dreadnoughts as well can access this, so you could go Dreadnought or Wolfguard Heavy, Terminators, all OBSEC, that are all heroically intervening. Yeah, fallback and in charge, and maybe brilliant. Next one.
Psychic Mastery, which gives a +1 to cast on a librarian.
Yeah, so this is for your chief librarians if you upgrade any. And you might be thinking, well, what's the sort of point in that? But I think you have to be taking a librarian if you're taking a Space Wolf army.
Yeah, there's a good theme from, we covered the Death Watch last week. Again, the psychic powers in the Death Watch almost leans towards librarian becoming an auto take, and I think looking at the 3 powers that we're going to talk about in a minute, it feels the same again in this book.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that.
Yep.
So Jack, talk us through some of the psychic powers.
So there's three that jumped off the page to both of us when we were looking at it. So the first one was Murderous Hurricane, which you select a unit and it can't fire Overwatch and it fights last. 18-inch range on cast on a 6, so easy to cast. Good enough range that you will be up the board anyway because you're looking to charge that unit. So that power alone allows you to charge up to 2 units safely without being interrupted on.
Yeah, and also I think the Overwatch works only if they're not in some sort of cover. But I mean, I think again you're going to know which unit to put that on and which not to. And the other reason why I like the +1 to cast on the Librarian, because again it makes all of these powers a cast value 6, so it becomes a 5, super easy to cast, harder to deny as well. Also, Psychic Mastery with that +1 to cast can help doing psychic actions. And when you've got an army that's, really relying on board control, maybe you're bullying the middle of the table and you want to do some psychic actions, then brilliant. But I think, again, you're probably not going to want to do a psychic action because these powers are just so good. So what's the next one?
So the next one is Instinct Awoken, which you target a friendly unit and you make the Assault Doctrine active. So again, casting value is 6, 18-inch range, and this is one of, I think I've counted 3 ways to activate Assault Doctrine on 3 different units, which is great because previously you'd have to wait till turn 3 to get your really powerful punch, but now you've got the ability to put a number of units in Assault Doctrine from turn 1, so you can take hold of an opportunity early game.
And it does say as well, if you are in Assault Doctrine, that I think in a modified roll of a 6 to wound increases the AP by another 1 as well. And it does say they stack, which is cool. Yeah. Okay, nice. And then finally the third one, which we thought was great.
Yeah, I think probably the best till last. I think it's Stormcaller, which provides an aura of light cover within 6 of the bearer. Which, when you're a Space Marine, you're going from a 3-up to a 2-up save. You imagine you've put that next to a block of Terminators with Storm Shields, all of a sudden you're on a 0+ save. A great power, that one.
Yeah, and the other great reason why I think you want to be taking a Librarian is because when you cast a psychic power, they have a really good stratagem called Cloaked by the Storm, and I think it used to be 3 CPs, it's now 2.
Yeah.
It's use this in your psychic phase after resolving the effects of a psychic power with the Tempestus discipline. So again, you have to take the Space Wolf discipline, manifested by a Space Wolf Psyker model from your army until the start of your next psychic phase. Each time a ranged attack is made by against a friendly Space Wolf unit within 6 of that Psyker, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So for basically this one power giving you the light cover, and then you need to be able to obviously get this psychic power from the Tempesta discipline, which it is. You can then become -1 to hit, so you've got +1 save and also the light cover. So it's kind of like your dense and light all in one, which is incredible for 2 CPs a turn while you're moving this massive block of heroically intervening, fullback in charging monster units.
And you probably only need to spend the 2 CP turn 1, maybe turn 2. To get you from your deployment zone to midfield, and then the next turn you should be midfield to enemy's deployment zone. So it's such a good combo, that one.
Yeah, so I really feel like you need to be taking a Chief Librarian in your army so you can unlock, because a Chief Librarian knows 3 and can cast 2. So I think that's really strong. And the Space Wolves aren't really a turn 1 charge army, and really you kind of want to be waiting for turns 3, 4 and 5 to be making majority of your charges anyway, so you can get off the the Savage Echoes and the Assault Doctrine. But it's nice now that there are these extra ways to bring in the Assault Doctrine if you are making a turn 2 charge. But then the other one I want to talk about is Agile Stormcaller. So this is a character for the Space Wolves, and he is basically a Chief Librarian, and he already has inbuilt a +1 for his psychic tests, which is amazing. So he's kind of already got that Warlord trait built in, but without having to take a Warlord. He's got Terminator armor. He knows 2. He can attempt to cast 2, and he can also denied to, and he knows 3 powers. So I think
Nice.
Najal is a really good one, and I think his Warlord trait is actually the one which is, if he takes a wound, he can, do that.
Okay. Yeah.
That feel no
The
pain
feel no
aura.
pain. Yeah.
And even if you don't make him your Warlord, there is a really nice stratagem in the book which they've added, which I actually read it wrong the first time I did read it, and how it actually works is if a character on the table does something that is worthy of a saga, so this guy doesn't even need to be a warlord, this Najal, but if he does perils and take a wound, you can spend 2 CPs and all of a sudden innate resolve with the bear, because that's his warlord trait and would be
Nice.
saga. Yeah, so I think it's quite cool. So then you don't have to sort of pin a warlord trait on him necessarily,
Yeah.
which I really like that.
That's cool.
So obviously they get access to litanies. What litanies are you picking if you're a Space Wolf player?
It's got to be the +1 to wound and the +2 to charge,
Yeah,
as well
and
as combined with the reroll to hits.
yeah. And are you going to be taking a chief? Can you take a chief?
Master of Sanctity.
I think you can. I'm pretty sure you can, but I think it's probably worth it as well if you can. That's one thing I'm just going to quickly check for everybody, because one of the things on the Death Watch they cannot take is a chapter master, because obviously they get the Watch Master instead.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, there's no restrictions here whatsoever for Space Wolves, so yeah, they can take a Master of Sanctity. Yeah, give that additional one.
Which is it's really good because there's also a stratagem for +1 to wound as well. So you can give 2 units +1 to wound. So if you were looking at Blood Claws or Assault Intercessors, you can get really effective with those cheap combat units. Obviously coupled with all the chapter tactics, etc. On top of it, they can be really effective.
Yeah, no, I agree there. You're kind of like a Space Wolf and a Blood Angel wrapped up into one, aren't you?
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Yeah, so let's have a little look at some of the stratagems. Now, for me, again, I think I said there was something like 16 new stratagems or whatever. I'm going to whiz through these super quick, but, they are very strong. You've obviously got that, there's a lot of like themes, isn't there, between all the books. So you get the one which is 2 CPs, and when it's your doctrine, anytime you roll a modified roll of a 6, it improves the AP by 1, so that's great. You've got Cunning of the Wolf. Basically, you can put a unit in outflank. Again, this is infantry, so you can have those blood claws in outflank. Really, really like that. Another one, the Emperor's Executioners. This is really good against Thousand Suns, reroll hits and wounds. Savage Strikes, that's 1 CP. If you've got a 5-man unit, you get +1 to the wound roll, as you said, or if it's more than 5, it's 2 CPs. Healing Balms, heal D3 if you've got a chaplain on a friendly unit, like how the Apothecary works. You've then got 2 CPs, Pack Hunters. This is quite a good one. 2 CPs, this one. It's basically, there's 2 aspects to this, and you get an additional charge with the Thunderwolf Cavalry, additional dice, and you discard 1 of them. So again, it just helps you with making more reliable charges, and also each time you make a charge, or at the end of the turn, each time a friendly Space Wolf character makes an attack with Crushing Teeth and Claws, which is basically the extra additional attacks, you can re-roll the wound roll. So you can stack that with the +1 to wound as well. And when you're getting like 3 additional attacks at strength 5, -1, 1 damage, and you're in the Assault Doctrine, it's going to become -2 and things. It's going to be a nice element there. 2 CPs is quite expensive, but I'm sure that time when you really need to clear off a load of chaff with all those extra attacks, it could be quite good. You've then got the 1 CP, you can consolidate an extra 3 inches, really, really clutch for, tagging, wrapping, anything like that, where you really want to make sure you're, sealing units so they can't either fall back, or you're forcing them to spend 2 CPs for Desperate Breakout, or you want to stop a tank from shooting or something. 2 CPs, Cloaked by the Storm, that's the one we mentioned earlier, so you can become -1 to hit. The Deed of Worthy of a Saga, again, I've already spoke about that one. You've got then the other classics, which is like, if you're a successor, you can draw from the Space Wolf Relics. If you already have a Warlord, you can spend another CP and give them an additional trait, providing that they're not a named character. And then you've also got the other one, which means you can give a sergeant a digital weapon or a frost weapon or whatever. And then the last 4, you've got bestial nature. You can essentially put a unit in the assault doctrine for a turn, and that is that you have to declare that in your command phase.
For 1 CP.
Yeah.
Cracking. Great strat.
You've got counter charge, which is 1 CP. You can heroically intervene 6 inches, but if it's a character, you can do it for free. Real nice.
Again, really good. Yeah, really good.
Yep. And keen senses, you can ignore in your shooting phase. Select one, infantry, biker, or cavalry. You can ignore any modifiers or ballistic skill modifiers. Again, we see that ballistic skill and weapon skill modifiers creep back in there, so we might see some changes from shenanigans on other armies later on. And then also you've got the 1 CP, you can basically turn one of your Space Wolf units into a Psyker so it can deny a power within 12. So I think there's some really strong stratagems there. Any standouts for you? I've just mentioned, Jack, which you're going to be leaning into?
Well, I think it's the +1 to wound and activating the assault doctrine combined with Chaplain Litanies to get +1 to wound and psychic powers to put another unit to assault doctrine, and then you've got the Space Marine strat for 1 unit to have all doctrines active, for example, as well.
And then you've got your stone as well, your old
yes, yeah.
So that's like 4 units you could put into Savage Echoes.
Yeah, so if you need to have a big turn on turn 2 because the opportunity's there, you've got the ability to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really going to come out of, your opponent's not going to be expecting that, is he? So, yes, I mean, I love that kind of. I actually really like the epic deed stratagems where you can, be -1 to hit on those Terminators, and you can use those characters to unlock certain, other deeds as well for that 6+ feel no pain. I think is really strong. Heroic intervention 6 inches. I've used that multiple times with Blood Angels, as you well know, and that can be punishing, can't it?
Yeah, heroic intervention is such a great ability, and for holding objectives, and having the ability to do it 6 inches means you can just own objectives so people can't go near them. Yeah.
So is there anything, Jack, that you think maybe would be a good counter to the Space Wolves?
I think like Blood Angels and other Blood Angels probably fight better than Space Wolves, or on a par. So if you pitch your fights and engagements correctly, you could kind of outdo them at their own game.
Yeah,
that's an option. But guns, and lots more guns is also a good way of getting through them. So plasma receptors, for example, or anything that's got 2 damage. Guns that could deal with Space Marine and power armor, because they don't have access to the apothecary, so they haven't got as much defensive resilience. A, for the feel no pain, and B, for models getting back up, so you can chip away at them a bit easier.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And also, if you've got any way to get rid of invulnerable saves, this army is gonna crumble. Like a Jinx, a Null Zone, a Death Hex. I think these powers, if they're not in your list, then you can have access to them. Dark Angels have a relic, right? That can do something similar.
Yeah, it's -1 to invuln, so similar to Jinx, yeah.
I think these are, big old powers you need to have in your army. You need to be aware of all the ways to fight last. So this is me as a Blood Angel player. Yes, I can probably outfight them. I couldn't do it against the Wolfen before because they would kill me when I killed them. Couldn't do that. But Wolfen won't be as prevalent. Now, if they're making me fight last, that's going to be a big issue. So I'm going to have to make sure I'm working around all those. And I think the 5 different ways that you need to watch out for that the Space Wolves can make you fight last is, number 1 is the stone. Yeah? Is it the stone? Sorry, the Armour of Russ.
Yeah, the Armour of Russ.
The Armour of Russ. You've then also got the Psychic Power.
Yeah. Murderous Hurricane.
You've got the Whirlwind Stratagem.
Yeah, Suppression Fire.
You got a Judicer.
Yeah, they're on 4.
And then you've got the Collector's Assassin.
So yeah, that goes up to a nice 5. That seems pretty reasonable. Your whole army could fight last.
Yeah, just suck on that, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, that does make a like a Rhino Rush or with Thunderwolf Cavalry list kind of appealing. You could just charge up the board, make everyone fight last, and then put Assault Doctrine on everyone and get the game wrapped up nice and early, eh?
Yeah, no, that's it. And I think you might. It does make your army completely unchargeable. You are going to suffer some problems, like can your characters keep up? If they fail a charge, then you're not going to get that in engagement range. So there are some issues to it.
And you're investing a lot of points. Yeah, you'd never take the 5 because you'd run out of units to do the damage because you've lent too much into this trick to make everyone fight last, but then you haven't. All of a sudden, you don't have the units to make use of it. So it's all about getting the right balance, and you certainly want at least one, but possibly 2 of these abilities in your locker.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what sort of HQ units are you looking at to take if you had to pick? Who's your top 3 HQs?
So it would be the Wolf Priest, so the Chaplain.
Yeah.
You go straight in. The Librarian.
On a bike?
Yeah, because I love them on a bike.
And he can keep up with the Thunderwolf Cav then as well.
Yeah, and I might even treat him to the pelt of the Beowulf to make him -1 to hit and wound. Why not? He's a bit of a tank then. So the Chaplain on the bike, a Librarian, either in a Rhino or with a jump pack if I was running Blood Claws or something like that. It's a style choice, but a Wolflord on a Thunderwolf, I really like that as a combo. It's probably better with a jump pack, but I really like him on the Wolf.
Well, you unlock the advance in charge, and then you can put the Hunter on him so you can fall back in charge as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a strong... I'm taking exactly the same. Libby, Chaplain and Lord, definitely taking that Relic on one of them to reroll the wound rolls, probably putting that on the Libby so he can just get a good shot off, and keeping the other, because you don't really want him in combat, the Librarian, so you can keep him at the back doing some shooting, acting like a lieutenant, but he has to be able to keep up with the rest of them whilst you've got on, Armour of Russ onto your Wolf Lord or your Chaplain maybe. So there's loads of cool... because actually, Wolf Lord with the Armour of Russ is then on a 1+ save, because you have your 2 up plus your Storm Shield, so then you're on a 1+ save.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
and
that's
then with your light cover, 0+ save. So I think that could be cool. And like you said, a Chaplain that's -1 to wound, and also if you put that thing on him, so you're -1 to hit, -1 to wound, and also he's got the 6+ feel no pain, and you can't reroll wound and damage rolls against him. You could maybe just charge him in first, and if your opponent goes, "Cool, I'm going to Overwatch," you're like, "Yeah, cool,
great, yeah." Try and take a wound.
Yeah. Oh, everyone's got a 6+ feel no pain now. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Yeah.
Or you give him the Hunter ability, so he can then he gets +1 to that advance in charge. Because he's got such a big movement on that bike, maybe you can get him in. So, you've got already. We've
choices.
You've got choices. You've got options. I'm really excited to see what Space Wolves can do on the table. You could build this in so many different ways. Whether you're going Rhino Rush with Blood Claws, you could go real Dreadnought heavy. All of these are viable. And as I said, over on the Academy, we're going to be covering what secondaries you can take, what you should take, and then with what types of army lists. You can actually see the army in action. I'm going to do a full review of the actual army on the tabletop, and then some top character combinations, what units you need to be including. We're also going to go into the best units in the Space Wolf Codex, for example, the best HQ, the best troops, the best elite, the best heavy support, so you can make sure you're bringing the most effective and efficient units. And then we do every single week we do a deep dive into a power combination, and there'll be certainly one there for the Space Wolves. Along with a cheat sheet for anyone going up against Space Wolves, so they know the right questions to ask. And then also, obviously, we give you bespoke feedback on your list and what secondaries you're taking. And we're doing a 7-day trial at the moment for $2.99, and you can get access to that through the website. But Jack, one last question for you, mate.
Let's do it.
Are you going to be going Blood Claws, or are you going for something else?
Blood Claws.
Yep, I knew it.
Rhino Rush, Blood Claws.
That's your list, is it?
Yeah, with Thunderwolf Cavalry.
Just with it all, yeah?
Yeah, just turn 1, advance everything up the board. Get Librarians, cast off the defensive abilities. Turn 2, charge.
Nice. I like
That's it.
I'm probably going for Bjorn, Murderfang, 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and then 3 Leviathans. That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, if you want to write a list, Jack, and send it over to me, I'll put that on the blog, and obviously I will be as well. But I'm very excited to see what the Space Wolves can do. And guys, thanks so much for listening. Hopefully this has given you a really good insight into the Space Wolves, maybe got you excited about potentially, starting a Space Wolf army. And there's loads of great painting tutorials out there. Good friends of ours, Cult of Paint and Seed Studios, all do some fantastic tutorials over on their YouTube channels and Patrons and stuff. So Andy Wardle, one of my friends from the Cult of Paint, has got an incredible colour scheme, I think, for the Space Wolves. So I might try that one out. But anyway, once again, guys, thanks so much. Leave us a review if you do like the show, whether you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever it is. If you're listening to us on YouTube, then please give us a like. Feel free to subscribe to the shows. It really helps us out, improve. And consider joining the Academy if you want to take your game to that next level. So once again, thank you very much. And Jack, appreciate you being with us at all times.
Cheers for having me again. Been a pleasure.
And we'll see you guys next week on the Competitive 40k podcast. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by the Vanguard Tactics Academy, the only online coaching course for Warhammer 40,000. At the VT Academy, not only do we help you win more games in the right spirit of the game, we'll build confidence and we'll help you get more value and enjoyment from your hobby and take you through step-by-step guides for everything from starting your first army to tournament play to advanced tactics. Sign up at vanguardtactics.com.